Okay. Hi. I was just talking to the guy in the store. I said, he was asking me what I was doing, blah, blah, blah. You know, making small talk. Good. I said, oh yeah, just getting road garbage so that I can go out for a drive and a chat. And he says, ooh, bad chat or good chat? I said, good chat. Oh, it must not be your wife. I said, it is. Now we like to go out and talk and chat and
stuff really like said that?
Yep. And he says, oh, you must have done something. And I said, yeah, actually, we're going to go over some stuff in a book that we're writing. And he says, oh, well, make sure to put a chapter on telling him how you chose that, how you guys got that right. And I said, oh, it was really easy. It was...
I have a vagina, he has a penis, he knows where to stick it.
Exactly. I said, no.
And my apologies to my relatives who will get offended by that.
Yeah, I said it was because I gave up looking and said it was okay to live alone for the rest of my life. I was all good. And then it happened. So,
Sun chips.
So all you have to do is give up work.
And I'll dress. And I think that's a Reese's something or other.
Reese's king size thing.
It's a little rainy.
Yeah, a little bit. I guess we're gonna have to go up and turn around.
Up and turn around. Oh.
Upping and turning around.
Oh, the humanity.
Just because I don't like turning around when there's a hill, and you never know what's on the other side. Like that car. It's a car. Run. Let's go. Oh, look at that house that we're pulling in the driveway. I wonder if they're going to look out. Let's see. Who the hell are those people? Sooke?
Yeah, let's go to Sooke.
Okay.
Apparently we're going to Sooke.
We're going to Sooke. That means we do this one.
Yeah, I was wondering what you were doing on this. He's cute when he doesn't know what he's doing.
Which is most of the time.
Distracted.
Most of the time.
Gas is cheap. Look at that. Oh my god.
Yeah, really. We should be able to sell the tape later because it's so rare.
Yeah, the gas is below $1 a liter.
While everybody else was going up to $1.24 9. Munchies in my mouth.
Really go for an orange Hostess cupcake. But that would require a trip to Arizona.
Yeah, I don't think we got the gas for it today.
Well, considering
gas is pretty cheap.
Considering you can't leave the country, that would be a problem.
Yeah, it's true. Well, it would be cool if we could materialize and dematerialize. That would be absolutely great.
You mean apparate? Apparate, yeah.
Or if we drive out to Sooke. Why are we going out to Sooke? Well, just because we can.
We've been watching how many hours of NYPD?
Well, we watched about 5 of them. 5 hours. That's it. With no commercials.
Someone has to edit.
Yeah. Well, okay, no need light? Okay. Oh, we'll wait till you go. Excellent.
Anyway, you were saying?
Thinking about writing a book called The Unconventional Parent. Going through, common problems that I see in people raising their kids and all that stuff. Everybody gets all panicked when the kids start to act out, which is like early teens generally. But they start, acting out. What some people think is acting out is just general kid experimentation. But, because they're going to do that. But, like, a lot of the times the kids really are acting out. And they're acting out against, whether they're like the hippies, they're acting out against oppression. But I think in general, they're acting out against restrictions. They're trying to break away. I think that, like, lots of psychologists will say that. But and parents tend to panic. Oh my God, they're acting out. Some kids get into drugs. Some kids can get into some pretty hairy situations because of it. Drugs, living downtown, living on the streets, to get away from what they see as their oppressors, which are their parents generally. And now, you can be the best parents in the world, quote unquote, in your own mind, but a lot of the times, in the minds of the kids, that doesn't work. And especially if you're not supporting your kids. And when I say that, it's support means being able to not only help your kids, like monetarily, make sure they're going to school, all of that stuff, but also help your kids emotionally with support rather than detriment. And what happens so often in our society today is that we lose track of that. Anyway, and we don't even know what the emotional support is. So the basis of the book is going to be talking about, initially, sort of what's happening in the world, how, kids are acting out, all of that stuff, and then talking about what the causes are. Because everybody gets so caught up in, the symptoms.
It looks pretty, it's just out of focus.
Yeah, that's cool. Everybody gets so caught up in the symptoms rather than and then they're looking for the cause, and they're looking everywhere else but at themselves, right? They're going, oh, it's got to be his environment, it's got to be the kids picking on him at school, and that certainly has something to do with it. But I think that our biggest problem as a society is that nobody has any self-confidence, right? Nobody gets taught that. To be confident in yourself. I mean, we get some of it sometimes when, we're really good at math or something like that. We have a fair amount of self-confidence in that area just because it's easy for us, or it's, same thing with acting. There's really great actors out there. There are actresses that pop out, and they're really self-confident in that area. But, in general, they're not self-confident with the rest of their lives. They're not self-confident on an emotional level in dealing with other individuals, in helping, figuring out situations and stuff.
I feel like I'm trying to film a hippie psychedelic video or something.
It is a hippie psychedelic.
My only complaint with this camera, it does not like the focus.
Not dark. No.
I even have it on the low lights. Well, it was. Oh, there it goes. No, back to. I don't know what it's doing.
Neither does it, actually.
Probably not.
Okay, so based on my own childhood and the huge lack of, emotional support going through life, on my mom's part, certainly on my dad's part, who wasn't around, and my stepfather's part, didn't know how to be emotionally engaged. What about you?
My childhood? Yeah. What about?
I mean, you had some good benefits that I didn't have, right?
Yeah.
You had parents that took you, that had a really strong sense of family.
Right.
Taking you with them. There was some really good stuff there.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wasn't pawned off on babysitters.
Right.
I had to go to daycare for 10 years, which kind of sucked.
Both
but
your parents had.
Well, they had to work. They didn't have a choice,
Right.
really.
But your mom spent as much time as she could with you.
She did.
Yeah.
She really did.
Your dad spent massively good time with you.
My mom used to help out my aunt on weekends, and then Dad and I would go off and do stuff. Go to Seattle and goof around. But yeah, Mom, we were always going shopping, and Dad and I were always going fishing. And then, it got a little bit harder as my knee problems kicked up.
Right.
Because no one really knew what I could go out and do because, no one. You try not to live like you have a problem, but not knowing when your knees are going to go out of place, it's a little hard to try to do anything. So.
But did you feel cared about?
Yeah. I didn't feel neglected. I mean, I was, ignorant, naive. They shielded me from a lot of the family bickering and stuff that happened, which I am grateful for because I definitely got to see that later.
Right.
And I knew it was always there as kind of an undercurrent, but no. I don't know. There were things that we didn't have growing up.
Right.
But on the other hand, we still, did a lot together, and
Right.
it was like the Christmas mom was really sick, and I was living back at home, and helping out, and still working full time. Dad was still working. Mom, couldn't work because she was so sick, and emotionally things were a little off with me and Dad just because I was stressed out, he was stressed out, didn't know what to do about Mom, and we had a couple tiffs, but we still had a great Christmas with her. We still stuff like that. It was like I don't know.
Well, but like I said, when I'm looking back on my childhood up into my growing adulthood, I can take a look at the things that were lacking, of course. I take sort of all into account. I had some really good shit that other kids didn't. Okay? In the fact that my mom didn't really try and shelter me from a lot. She really tried to explain things and be open on a communication level about things that sometimes were scary. And all of that stuff. And she encouraged me to sort of grow and learn and experience life. So on a level, you know, I mean, I didn't have some of that shelteredness that a lot of people did. Now, the compensation was I didn't have a lot of loving, caring, you know, let's go do things, right? Right. You know, you heard about my mom going to Hawaii that one time when she went to Hawaii. Right. And didn't take us kids with her. And, you know, and in your family, that would have been what? Yeah. You know?
Yeah, because there was like one vacation that I didn't go with them, and then Mom went on one by herself. Right. Dad's gone on a couple by himself, but it's usually at least, you know, had been one of my parents or all three of us.
Right.
So.
But I mean, it was nothing to me or my sister to have that happen. You know, it was certainly different. I was a latchkey kid. My parents weren't really around a lot. My sister and I basically were on our own most of the time. So, you know, when it was tough to feel like somebody cared about us. So we had to deal from that perspective. But I mean, it's when we look back at those things, right? You know, on some levels, you know, I'm really grateful for some of the things I got, and then on other levels, I was really I felt like I was lacking, right, because of it, right? You know, I listen to your background and I go, geez, you know, I wish I, you know, had somebody that was a little bit more involved in my life. Kind of like your parents. Right? And on other levels, it was, we both had our advantages and disadvantages based on that. Right. But I mean, when I look back at it and just go, oh, okay, well, you know, these things happened to me, and then I mean, some pretty traumatic shit happened to me in comparison to other kids, and also, oops, that's what I meant to do.
Yeah, let's turn it to that giant rock.
And also, in comparison to other kids, some of my traumatic stuff looked like child's play.
Right. And then, of course, a lot of people look at me and go, well, your parents never divorced. You didn't have a rough life.
Right.
Like,
but of course, everybody's got their rough life.
Right. I mean, my knee problems were a
huge part of it.
I mean,
well,
you know.
That was huge for you, too,
well,
right?
It was like, you know, when my parents got married, you know, when my sisters were, 8 and 10 or 9 or something. Anyways, you know, Mom took 2 years off when I was a baby, but then she had to go back to work because they still had to pay child support, right? All this stuff, you know, plus pay rent, everything. You know, and Dad with his medical problems, and you know, and then you know, getting diagnosed with scoliosis at a young age, and then a few years later, my knee problems came up, and you know, not knowing really what to do, blah, 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 you know. I mean, so there's, you know, yeah, I didn't come from a broken home.
Well, I mean, but yes and no. It depends on what you look at it as a broken home, right?
Well, there were times my dad wasn't around because he was working a lot, but I never really felt neglected.
Right. Now, I mean, this also gets into another area. what does that look like for a kid, right? It's sort of like, you had some advantages that I didn't, definitely, you know, and I have advantages that you didn't, definitely.
Right.
And we got to a point in our lives where both of us still looked at ourselves as bad, right? As bad people. We didn't do it right. We didn't.
Well, there's always people who are going to tell you not doing shit
Right.
the right way, or why'd you do it that way instead of this way?
But I look back at, and the reason that I'm sort of walking down this road is because I look back at what did our parents neglect to teach us about life that helped create that insecurity that we have, right? And it's not their fault. It's not anything like that. But I'm looking at what didn't we get as kids? You know, yeah, we got some good stuff, most definitely. And I mean, even at 27, you looked at me and you saw a bunch of self-confidence there.
Right.
Okay? Now, part of that was being able to be self-reliant, right? Because my parents weren't there,
Right.
I had to learn that. You had to learn how to be self-reliant. You had to learn confidence in yourself. Now, also, Jim taught that. Okay? No, think about it. What do you think you need to do next? What do you know?
Right.
He constantly really drilled that in, is to think, to try and understand situations, to, you know, understand people a little bit better. And, you know, and part of it was my personality. I have an initiative to be able to go and investigate that stuff. I felt like I was broken, and I needed to find out why. Okay? And what that meant. So I did some more research on it, and finally figured some stuff out.
Wow, that's really lit up.
So, I mean, but both of us got to a space, because I still do it now. I mean, I've got, lots of people think that I've got a ton of self-confidence, and on some levels, certainly I do. But you've experienced me, and you experienced when I have my doubts, and when I'm scared, and all of those things that come up for every one of us, right? All based on the fact of thinking that I'm not good enough and I can't do it, right? Even though in my head I know I can, but emotionally trying to say that to yourself, and especially when you don't feel it,
Right.
is absolutely. So what is it in our parents that didn't teach us that? Now, what I wanted to go in on this book with was the fact that, you know, truthfully, you know, we get affected by our kids at school, we get affected by, you know, television programs, we do get affected by that stuff.
Right.
But I think it's fairly minimal. I think most of the stuff that we get affected by is from the ages of 0 to 10. And it's mostly exposure to what our parents are doing. And it's stuff that they don't even know that they're teaching. It's the way that they demonstrate how to live their lives, right? You know?
You mean like simple stuff, like how they interact with other people?
How they interact with each other is the biggest thing. It's mommy and daddy. These are the gods of our universe. I mean, seriously, absolutely, unequivocally, from the earliest stages, you know, to when we start to really try and sort of break away from that in our teens. They are the major influencing factor in our lives.
Right.
And you and I were talking to my mom today about just that, right? How did that affect her way, right? Her parents were not demonstrative. You didn't see them touch. She said, I didn't see them touch, you know, or smooch or kiss or anything, right? She didn't see any demonstration of that. And so in her life, that never happened for us kids either. You know, there wasn't a lot of touching or kissing or anything with my stepfather, or Mac that I knew of. Mac was my dad. And so, here it is that my sister and I don't have any role models based on, how to be intimate with a person and how to be intimate in public with a person, right? And to show that to your kids. Now, the demonstration that her parents taught her was that it was probably wrong, right? She didn't realize that she was picking that up. But subconsciously, the gods of her world were showing her what she should be doing when she grew to be like them. Right? And so consequently, she demonstrated that to my sister and I. Now, luckily enough, my sister and I were aware enough in our own selves to understand that that wasn't right for us. We knew that there was something more than this, right? Now, whether that's based on the other training that Mom and Jim did with us, I can't tell you for sure. But there was some other stuff, self-investigatory stuff, that both Shannon and I did. And we were both very well aware and very well versed on a mind level to be aware.
Now, on the other hand, some people aren't demonstrative in front of other people.
That's right.
They keep their intimacy to themselves. And not necessarily, a bad thing.
It's I agree, but I also would say that if you are not demonstrative in front of your children, and it's not like you don't have to be overtly demonstrative, we're going, people would go, oh, well, deep kissing and deep tongue kissing. No, touching each other, the friendly look, all of those things are subliminal, subconscious indicators that the relationship is working, right? And that it shows love. It's just like you would to your kid, right? If you were not touching your kid, if you were not giving them a hug, if you were not reassuring them with the quick smile or the wink or the, all of that stuff, which you do with your kids, but you're not doing with your spouse, right? A lot of the times that's what happens, right? It's not demonstrating. Because, let's face it, most relationships aren't that great.
Well, and then also, for some people, after they have kids, it shifts from the spouse to the kids.
Right? Therein lies a bunch of resentment as well on the adult level, right? The men are not getting the sex that they have, or the attention that they used to have, and of course, because they are emotionally young, because nobody has really taught them to be any emotionally older than their parents were. Because they're emotionally young, they resent. They shut down, they go away, and so a lot of that stuff does shift, definitely. But what we find, or what we see with the fact that the kids aren't getting this information, their relationships are basically mirrors of their parents. Right? As they go. And, you're a rare exception of that. Okay? You are definitely a rare exception. You're not mirroring what your parents have done.
No.
Okay?
They give me some good tools, though.
Yes. It was never about the fact that they didn't give you any good tools. You were also smart enough to recognize the things that you didn't get. This is, a lot of the times, the kids' chops on being able to see the stuff that they don't have.
Right.
And to be able to do their best to create stuff that they don't have. Okay? This isn't to say that all kids do that. Not all kids do that. Not all kids are above average intelligence, so on and so forth, okay? Or taught to be, or taught to think, right? Your dad gave you some really good tools in being, well, why don't you just try it yourself? Why don't you pull that thing apart? Why don't you take the computer apart? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Your dad gave you some good tools to be able to logically put things in place and to think about things. Okay, and that was a tremendous tool that your dad gave you.
Yeah.
Okay, so in that, you have a toolkit that's broader than a lot of people, because most dads won't do that, right? Unless you're their son, right?
Oh, Dad didn't have sons.
Yeah.
He had tomboys.
So, but again, on some levels, when you take a look back at the relationships that you had before this one, can you see the mirror of the relationship of your parents? Can you see the possibilities that were going there? Right? I mean, that's what I look at in my life. I lived out a kind of relationship like that, and of course it wasn't conducive to me, but it was what I thought I should be doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't know. Because Paul and I only dated 2 months. Ken and I only dated 6 months.
Right.
I don't think I can make a fair.
Right. Okay.
comparison.
So you didn't have any long term.
Longer than 6 months? No, not serious. I mean, yeah. Anyways, there's things I can compare and other things I can't.
Right.
As to whether or not it was anything like, my parents' relationship. No, I can't make that comparison.
Okay. Well,
because there's no.
Because it wasn't long enough to be able to,
No.
and it wasn't serious enough.
No.
Okay. But I mean, I found me sort of living that. Right. I can say that on a level, that's some of the things that were going on for me. And I watch people, it's sort of, the wonderful line, I don't want to be like my parents.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, and then they end up being like their parents.
Yeah.
Right? You could barely tell the two apart at the same age,
Well,
right?
the law of attraction doesn't hear the word no.
Yes.
That's why.
So.
And inevitably they're saying, I want to be like my parents.
Right. Well, but...
I pay attention.
And I know you do. And the truth is
but
subliminally.
On the other hand, that's all they know.
Right. I agree.
That's the major example in their lives.
Of course.
I was around my parents. I was also around my grandparents. And, my aunts and uncles.
Right. But I mean, it's, you see them, but you compare them to your parents. See, as kids, that's what I did, right? I compared everybody else's parents to mine. Right? Because those are the ones that I knew intimately. Right? I was there. I watched it all. I saw the interaction. My parents, it was confusing because I didn't see any love there. Right? I really didn't. I didn't see what I considered to be love. All I saw was two people hanging out together. Right? So, and, Jim was, because I was living in a plutonic relationship. Or is it plutonic? No. Platonic. Okay, anyway, sorry. Because I was living in a polygamous relationship.
Household.
We didn't polygamous household.
Yeah.
We didn't see a lot of Jim anyway.
Right.
He was only by every once in a while, and generally he'd show up, and in the middle of the night when we were sleeping, and we'd get up the next day, and there Jim was having some breakfast and leaving. Right. So there's the creation of.
So you didn't see a lot of the interaction.
I didn't see any.
Shelley.
I didn't know what a relationship was supposed to be like. I mean, one of the big beefs of my last relationship was the fact that I didn't know anything. Right? That I didn't know what polite was, or what to do in certain situations, or what I was supposed to do in certain situations, right? Because I don't understand it. I had no basis for comparison. Zero. Right? I was raised by bunnies. I was raised by myself. Okay, my sister and I basically helped ourselves raise. And we tried to base our comparisons on other people's relationships. Right? What do you do?
Right.
It's like we weren't out to ruin anything. We just didn't know. And of course, oh well. But it was still based on what I didn't see. Right? I saw my mom. I knew that she loved me.
Right.
You know, I was pretty sure that she loved me. I have to say. You know, because I didn't really know. I know that sometimes she did, but other times she didn't. You know.
Right.
So it was pretty confusing. But I know that I took that stuff on. All of the stuff between her and Mac, all of the stuff between her and Jim.
Yeah.
All of that stuff was my basis. That's the big hotel right there.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a nice room downstairs.
Is that the one without an elevator?
No, it was. They have without 2 elevators, but they had another one on the other end.
Wow.
But it's like we build relationships based on, and you know, perhaps in your case, you wanted to build a relationship that wasn't like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some people are astute enough to be able to see the flaws in the relationships around them.
And then when you've got people telling you all the time, you know, how people in relationships are supposed to act, and the guy's supposed to do this, and the girl's supposed to do that,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah.
Oh, of course. Can't really.
It's like after Paul and I broke up, and, you know, the lady at work telling me, you know, you should write down your list of what you want in a man,
Right.
and don't deviate from it.
Right.
And of course, once you meet the right person, you basically, the list goes, I mean, there's certain things you don't deviate from. Like, you know, be honest, or at least try to be honest.
Well, but
You know,
again,
don't cheat on me, you know.
a lot of those things are taught way early on.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I think that to a degree, your parents have a penchant for doing your best to be honest. Now, do I think that they're honest all the time? Not at all. I think, you know, on a lot of levels, they're emotionally dishonest, right? And that's what sort of comes across, right? Same thing with my parents. On a level, they were emotionally dishonest. They were emotionally dishonest in the fact that they didn't show their affection in front of anybody else. And so, on a level, they're lying about it. And I couldn't tell whether, you know, I couldn't even tell why they were together. You know, other than, you know, later on understanding sex is like, well, it must be the sex is really good, you know, or something, right? And I mean,
Yeah, but that's the first assumption when people can't, on the outside, can't see why 2 people are together. Oh,
Right.
the sex must be good.
well, and it might be, you know. I mean, it's a valid excuse. I mean, Mom stayed together with Mac because the sex was so well, right? Until he had his back injury, and that fucked everything up. Right.
And when we got together, if the sex would have been lousy, I wouldn't have cared.
Well, but, you know, to a degree, you and I both agree on this one. The sex was great because it was already great in your mind. You know, it was already there. It didn't matter whether, you know, I had a small dick or whatever, because it had to do with who I was in your head.
Exactly.
Right?
It wasn't about what you could do for me. It was about who you already are and
Right.
the person I had known for years.
Right. Well,
know.
and somebody that accepted you.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, and that
Like
I
I
mean,
said, the relationship was basically pressing resume, you know, and adding sex to it.
so well, that brought up something is just, you know, I mean, on the level of acceptance from the parents, what did that look like in our lives? What did they approve or disapprove of? What did we get in trouble for and what didn't we get in trouble for? Right? It's, you know, what were they trying to protect us from? Right? And good parents, I have to say, you know, what they call good parents, they protect their child.
Right.
Okay? But again, everybody has this idea of what protection is. I mean, we don't talk about sex. What do you mean we don't talk about sex? You know, when the kid brings it up, be matter of fact. Sex is part of life. This is all how it works, all of that stuff. Of course, you gotta check inside and say, hey, is this appropriate?
Right.
You know, is this something that we deal with right now? You know, and there's been times that I said, oh, no, not right now. but I will give them part of the information and say, you know what, the other stuff's for later.
Well, it was like, my mom and dad watching movies that were, not. It's gonna sound like I'm meaning pornos, and I don't.
Right.
More of a
risque movies. Got it.
Not really risque, but more just adult movies.
Right. That had some
sexual connotations to it. But I remember when Pretty Woman came out on video, and I went and bought it for my dad. I was 9, I think, 9 or 10, or 11, or something. Anyway, somewhere in there. So I go and buy my dad this movie, and there's the part where, Julia Roberts starts taking her dress off.
Right.
And my mom goes, because she's clean a hooker, goes, honey, maybe you should, go to your room and not watch this. And then not even 2 minutes later, she comes out and goes, oh, come on, you know what sex is, or something to that effect. That was kind of silly of me, I mean, it was kind of, my sex talk was don't do it,
Right.
But on the other hand, they didn't really go out of the way to kind of hide
Cover
that.
it up.
No.
Right. Yeah,
I knew I knew the kind of movies they taped off of Cinemax. I'm not stupid, but they didn't go. And again, that sounds like they're taping pornos. No, that's not what I meant.
I know, but I mean, some of them had topless nudity.
Right,
blah, blah, blah,
right. Police Academy, the big scene where all the girls rip their tops off, and stuff like that. But they didn't go around hiding it. They'd wait till I went to bed or something. But, I knew they watched that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching Lethal Weapon when I was little. And then moving to Chehalis and seeing kids my age who weren't allowed to go see rated R movies.
Right.
And it's like, why? Well, you have to be 17 and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this isn't about going to the theater to see. You don't watch it with your parents.
Right.
No. And I'm like, oh my God.
Well,
there was something, that I was curious about or whatever, What about this? Well, I don't know if that's appropriate for you, but, we'd all watch it together.
Right. Well, I mean, and moralistically, which is what the parents are trying to do, because their morals don't include sex, because part of it is their religion says sex is bad.
Right.
Right. All that stuff.
Oh, did Mom ever tell you the thing about the Barbie dolls?
Oh.
Okay. Well, it was one of my cousin's birthdays. It was when my aunt and uncle from North Carolina lived in Centralia.
Right.
And it was one of the kids' birthdays, and we're in one of the bedrooms, and I was the oldest kid there, and we're playing Barbies.
Right.
Well, we played Barbies at daycare. We put the,
Oh, you did the marriage thing with the McKinnon Barbie.
Yeah, everybody did that.
Right.
Well, the story comes out a couple days later that I told my cousin that sex was walking down the street without your clothes on.
Right.
Huh? I was like 10. I would have said something like that.
Right.
I made the Barbies kiss or something, but, So anyways, all this shit flies around about my mom, and, well, if you wouldn't have sex in front of her in the camper, they never did that.
Yeah.
Just bullshit flying around. My mom was so pissed. My dad was pissed.
Right.
I was pissed because I didn't do anything wrong, and here they all think I'm some corrupted child.
Right. Well,
and it's like,
and again, it's part of it's the community.
Right.
Okay, the community says it's bad and all that stuff. And unfortunately, what that does is it trains the kids to think it's bad. And it's not bad. It's life. I remember...
Well, it was like the next time we saw them after,
Yeah.
They came out for Thanksgiving when I was in grade 9, and the first thing one of my cousins says to me, whoa, when we lived here, you were really mean, huh? And I'm like, I want to go home.
Right.
I don't want to be around this bullshit. It's like, ugh.
Right. But it's like, so when we look at where all that stuff comes from, most of our moralistic stances, everything like that, comes through our parents.
Right.
How they're training, what they say, what they don't say. Okay? It's, and one of my thrusts of the book is going to be, how can you train something into somebody when you don't understand it or have it for yourself? Right?
Well, and the thing is, the one thing about doing the journalism talking was, this is back before blogging. People blogged back then, but it was not everybody was blogging. So, unless you were writing an opinion piece, you had to be objective. You had to show every freaking side of the story.
Right.
You know. So, when I think about doing this book, you know, you make your point. You say, this is what I do or want to do, blah, blah, blah. And here's the other side of it. People will say this, and that. There's evidence pointing toward them being right, but for me, my child, this situation, because every situation is different, every child's different, every set of parents is different, you know, and it all the parameters change when, especially when families are very blended, like this one, you know. So, yeah, it's not like it's going to be Drew, you know, spouting his, you know.
Yeah, standing on a soapbox, shouting.
Right. No, it's going to be Drew stating this point or this determination or something, and blah 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 blah, going in the other direction.
No matter what, there's situations that you're going to run into. One, you know, your kid could, you know, I mean, I know I say this often, but it's the truth. Could have a brain dysfunction. Could have been dropped on their head when they were a kid. You know, I mean, there's numerous things that you cannot account for. Okay, physical issues, genetic physical issues. I mean, it's, you know, the amount of people that are out there is the amount of things that could be happening.
Right.
Okay.
On the flip side of that is like with the kids in the school and the teachers not being able to control the kids, saying that they're ADD or ADHD and having them put on Ritalin just because a kid needs a little bit more attention.
Right.
You know, that to me, you know, seems wrong.
Let's
I understand why they do it, but you can't just go around medicating everybody just because, you know, you don't have control over them.
Right. Well, but let's take a look at specifically our daughter, okay, Nikita, in saying that, you know, you take a look at, she's got insomnia.
Yeah.
She's got what some people would consider ADD. Okay. She's got a little bit.
She's OCD. That's
OCD.
A big part of it. She also has anxiety.
Yep. But I mean, now we could argue that her current emotional environment contributes to some of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, but I mean, and growing up in that emotional environment, you understand? So what I'm saying by this book specifically, is that not only, you know, like she takes the cues from both her parents, I being one of them. Okay, she took some of her cues from me, some of her cues from her mom. Okay, and she blended that in together. She saw the dysfunction in the relationship. She definitely saw it. Yeah. Okay. And as much as me leaving hurt, it also showed her, and I didn't want to not show her that if it's not working, don't go. Right? This is not, you know, you don't have to make it work. Right? And so, you know, in doing that stuff, showed her something different. And I also talked to her about that specifically. Yes. Said, I'm not going to sit here and be a hypocrite and tell you that you have to stay with somebody that is doing that. Right. Now, that's the difference. There's a difference between being able to look for ways to create, to keep creating, and another one to finally say, you know, this ain't working. Right. Which is where I finally got to. Right? Finally said, this ain't working. I've tried everything 6 ways from Sunday to allow this to work, and it ain't, because I'm not the only factor here. Right. Okay? And so, you know, trying to instill that. So we take a look at her state. We also take a look at her state right now, today, when she was so excited about getting the 76 or the 86% that she got on her test. And bumped her mark up to 76.4, which is a high C, which is nice. Right,
all from just a month of working with her.
Yeah, of a month of working with her, giving her the attention that she was looking for. Okay? Now, this is to say that not all people can do that. No. Not all people have the emotional stability to do that. I certainly didn't have the emotional stability when I was with her mom to be able to create a lot of that. Now, I was happy to be able to create some of it, to let her know that she was loved.
Right.
And that was the big thing when I left. Is she didn't feel that anymore. Right. And of course, I'm with a different person, and all of the emotions up in the air and everything going all over the place. Couldn't demonstrate that to her often.
Right.
Because it was just where everything was. Right? She understands it now.
Yes.
But of course back then it's, it just contributed to her emotional state, all of that stuff. And, but, again, she took the cues from both her parents. And tried to create a life from that. And at 16 years old, she's creating a life for herself and doing some things that some people would think are questionable.
Yep.
Right? Also doing some stuff that is really, really good stuff. It's like I said before. I mean, we talked about sex early. I was pretty sure that she would try it out at some point. But again, it wasn't me telling her no or yes.
Right.
It was me saying, hey, if you are, be responsible.
Right.
Right? And when that did happen, she was.
Yes.
She was responsible around it. She researched it. She looked it up. She made sure that what she was doing was correct. She talked to me about it.
She talked to me about it.
She talked to you about it.
Yeah.
And we encouraged to see if I said, hey, was it good?
Right.
Was it right? Did it feel right? Did all of this stuff? And she was like, yeah, it was a choice. I made that choice.
Yes.
And it was a good choice. And so by encouraging her and saying, your choices are valid and your choices are good choices.
Right.
It creates that self-confidence that so many people are lacking. It helps that. And not only that, with that kind of reinforcement on something that big, it allows her to come back with some of the bigger stuff and say, give me some guidance, right? Or give me a barometer, a test on what it is, right? And so Talia and I both go and say, hey, did you look at it this way? Did you look at it that way? And because I taught her to do that, she researches everything quite well. Which is good. Finding out all the information about something.
With her tongue piercing.
Yeah, huge.
She watched videos on YouTube. She, researched the best piercer in town.
Yeah, and how it's done, what nerves they miss, why they do it those ways.
Even down to the type of needle that they use and why they do it in that particular spot.
And, what the detriment to her teeth may be. She was on top of it when she did that. Now she made an informed choice. Yeah, at 15, where most parents would be going, "Oh my God, you can't make an informed choice at 15." The truth is, anybody can make an informed choice if they are allowed to make an informed choice. Right? Most parents don't allow their kids and don't teach their kids how to be able to do that because they are so scared their kids are going to take all of the leeway in the world. And depending on the kid, it sometimes does happen. No matter how good you are at it.
Right.
Being able to help them out or being able to guide them or whatever. Those kids will sometimes, go nuts because that's their personality. They're acquisitive or, they only think about themselves or, it does happen. You, every now and again, do get a sociopath. Not for any fault of your own, but so, like I said, every kid's different. It's sort of like my buddy Dean's girl. She doesn't like talking about sex or any of that stuff. She's a geek. She doesn't even want the reference. It upsets her. And so that's her personality. And she gets, she's very OCD in comparison to even Nikita. And so you can't say that this is like a blanket statement for all kids. Never.
No way.
Every situation presents itself as a different situation.
I can see the line of the road. flights.
It's open all year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's open all year. I mean, we can go anytime. We can go in the winter. The kid is doing distance school. That'd be fun.
It would be.
Look, it's a toilet.
Toilet.
It's a tree. It's a parking lot.
But, I mean, did Nikita learn a lot of her stuff based on what her parents did? Yes. I certainly took Nikita aside and talked to her when she asked questions. You know, explain things to her when I get angry. Right? You know, if I got angry, I would bring her back in and apologize and tell her why I got angry.
Right.
Because I didn't say that the anger was her fault.
Right.
I never have. I don't think that anger is anybody else's fault other than my reaction to what other people are doing. Right? And I let her know that. I said, the reason that I got angry is because of this. It had nothing to do with you and everything to do with my reaction. Right? And then, you know, I mean, a lot of the times Nikita would come back, well, I'm sorry, I was really trying to make you angry. Right? And I said, that's okay, and that's understandable. For me reacting the way that I did, I understand you trying to provoke that, so on and so forth, right? Because it wasn't about, chastising her for being human. It was about acknowledging that she is. And so, because of that, I mean, and you know her.
Yeah.
You know what that has created. That acceptance, that understanding. I mean, you know what it's created in you, because I'm that kind of person. Right? Being able to treat you as if you were a person.
Right.
When you were 15, 16 years old, as opposed to treating you like you were a kid. Right? Because, I mean, I've always treated kids accordingly, of course, but I did not ever think that I owned them, or I had an overlordship to them, or that, no, not at all. They, in their own right, had that kind of power, because I remember me having that power. I remember all of that growing up. I remember my thinking processes. I remember how logical I was, how much I observed, and how much nobody wanted to listen to me because I was a kid, right? Now, that's not to say that there was a number of situations that Nikita got embarrassed by stuff that I pointed out to her. I said, now wait a minute, now you're just talking because you want to talk and be part of the conversation. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be part of the conversation, but this is the way that you look to other people. Right? And I said, don't let it get you down. Just say it. You might want to just check in, because adults love it if you just sit and listen. And if you sit and listen, eventually you'll start to learn something and really be a part of it. Because then when you open your mouth and say something, you have something to contribute.
That's a text message.
Welcome to the United States.
Yep.
Okay, but I mean, really initially, what I'm really talking about is you cannot teach your kids what you don't know. And generally, you can't teach your kids what you don't know about yourself. Because most of us don't know diddly squat about ourselves.
Right.
We know things that make us angry, right? We know that waiting in line at the bank makes us angry, or waiting for that guy in front of me makes me angry. I mean, we know some of those things.
It's like the guy at the gas station today.
Oh, yeah.
Pissed off.
That's because he made a bad choice.
Yeah.
He chose to go over into the other line.
Yeah.
And I got in ahead of him because I was there waiting, right? And he didn't wait. So he was angry because he was going to back out and go into the space that I took.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice. I really wasn't paying attention, but you did point him out.
Yeah.
I went, yeah, so what? I understand he was pissed. At that's just because, again, he had an expectation of it taking a shorter time, and it didn't. You know, and he's, for some unknown reason, thought he had the right to, right? And I mean, we all do. We all get impatient. We all get that space. But that's all a part of life. Truthfully, we know some of the things that piss us off. We even know some of the sensations that we like to have that make us feel good, right? We like to have this sensation, or we like to have that sensation, and it feels great. And so we go towards the stuff that makes us feel great, and we get pissed off at anything that stops us from getting there. Or so we perceive. So, I mean, we know some of that stuff. We know some of the triggers, but we never really investigate the whys.
Right.
Right? Well, why am I like that? It's not until way later in life when, you know, their life has turned into this one big disaster because of their impatience.
Right.
That they start to investigate. You know, why can't I have any good relationships? I've been through 3 marriages and have 3 kids that are all acting out and it's all that shit. That they really start to question that. Which on, you know, some levels is quite ridiculous, because considering how, you know, information oriented we are in society. But, you know, I mean, it's the truth is we're teaching our kids to be that impatient. I was talking to you the other day about talking to Jen in the car.
Right.
And pointing that exact point out to her that she had never ever thought about. Ever. Says, yeah, well, the kids today, blah, 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 right? And I'm saying, yeah, but we're teaching them that. You know, well, what do you mean? I said, well, when you're pissed off at being in a line in the bank, when you're bitching at the guy ahead of you in traffic, what are you teaching your kids? You're teaching your kids to mimic you, to be impatient. And, of course, because they have no patience. They have no patience with themselves. And, therefore, no self-confidence. You know, I mean, it's all a big contributing factor. You know, we don't teach our kids how to be patient. Because we don't know how to be patient. We've never learned it. Our parents never taught it to us because they were impatient. And the more that we get indoctrinated into this disposable society, the more impatient we get. You know, talking about the kid on the airplane that, you know, we now have internet on our airplane. It's the first time that it's happened, the first time anybody's experienced it. And after 10 minutes, the internet goes down. We are sorry that the internet goes down. And the kid's going, what the fuck is this? Oh, this fucking bites, blah, 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 right? And it's something that he didn't even know existed 10 minutes before. You know, it's like we're living in a society of absolute convenience. And if we're not given that convenience, we're, you know...
Well, I remember when thinking it was weird seeing people with portable DVD players on airplanes.
Yeah.
You know. Just being lucky I had my little...
Discman.
Yeah, my Discman.
Well, but, you know, I mean, it's... Again, we don't teach the patience because we don't own it. How can you teach self-confidence if you have none? I mean, you could teach self-confidence in an area, but if your kid doesn't function in that area, I mean, it's sort of like a math teacher can be extremely self-confident with math and blah, 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 but what if this kid has a problem with math, right? Well, now the kid's being belittled because he's not confident in math, right? And that's a lot of that does happen, because that self-confidence is the only self-confidence that the guy has. Right. And so his kid not having it, oh my god, you know, all of that stuff. But, you know, and if his kid, but then again, maybe the kid does have, and that kid goes with that self-confidence in the math, but has no self-confidence in any emotional relationship because his mathematician dad never had any success with a relationship. You know, I don't know a lot of people that have success in relationships. So how can you teach that when you have not had that? Right? You can't. Nor can you create it. You can create a person that is able to think for themselves. You can help them, encourage them to think more, think better, put puzzles together, and understand. But again, when we look at our lives and what we got chastised for in our lives, and we shy away from it, right? I mean, fuck, I lived in an abusive relationship for, ever since I was a kid, really. I really did. I could not get away from it because emotionally, whether Mama realized it or not, she belittled me. And because that's what she knew. By only pointing out all of the things that I was doing wrong and never really praising the things that I was doing right, and also formulating the wrong and right thing. And, you get chastised or spanked for doing the wrong thing, and I think that it's appropriate on some level, right? But not for the reasons of getting angry, but for the reasons of, you want me to turn off the heat?
No, I just need some fresh air.
Okay. Go ahead and open it more, because I'm roasting. But they all take it personally, as opposed to just saying, hey, I'm doing this so that you understand that the consequence to this is this. Right? But a lot of the times it's belittlement that trains people. And belittlement does not a self-confidence person need. There's lots of people, and I've talked to a number of people that have met Nikita that said they can't believe what kind of self-confidence she exudes. Right? And she does.
Yeah.
She has a self-confidence about her because she's seen self-confidence. And so she owns some of it. Not completely. She's not like all self-confident. She's just as fucked up as the rest of us. But, she owns something that other people don't have. Because she was able to see that in action. But, wow. What does belittlement do? It belittles. It makes you feel small. And when you feel small, you are now pulling the rug out from under somebody that is trying to be self-confident. There's nothing wrong with creating guidelines. There is nothing wrong with sticking to those guidelines and saying these are the consequences to your actions. Not because you are a bad person. Right. Because people get so mixed up with that, is they create this scenario that they're bad people. They're not. They're just people. They did this, and because they did this, this happens. Right? It doesn't make you bad. It just makes you a kid experimenting or a kid, doing their thing. But, this is really, really bad for you, and I don't really think that you understand that it's really bad for you, and so the consequence to that is, right? I want to let you know that this is really bad for you. So, you get to write a report on what this can do to you, or whatever, and it's not because you're bad. I just want to let you know. You can make an informed decision later on when I'm not responsible, and you can do that if you want. But as of this point, because I'm responsible, I need to show you what this could do, instead of personally humiliating. And I think that that's where we, again, as parents, go wrong. The humiliation.
Right.
That's why I never really understood, why Paris did it. She hates being humiliated, and she'll do it to her daughter. It's like, what? Or she'll do it to me or other people. Whether we realize it or not, we feel like we're wrong. And there is one of the things that you and I talked about a lot. I'm not out to try and humiliate anyone. I don't want to at all. Right? Or anybody else, for that matter. It's not about humiliation. It's about looking at what we're really doing.
Right.
It's like, that's okay. We can all choose, but we have to see what we're really doing to each other first. I love you. So I don't know. I mean, when we look at our childhood and what we had to deal with and where we've come to, right? I think I've come a long way personally from the childhood that I had. And I certainly could have pointed my finger and blamed everybody for the stuff that went on. You know? I mean, yeah, there was lots of situations that created the person that I am today. That created some of the phobias that I have. But they weren't any particular person, even if they were being vindictive. Okay? If I held on to that stuff, I could never move past it. And it's not even move past it. Deal with it.
Right.
Because by not dealing with it, I'm just letting it eat me and run me and all that stuff. And I personally do not agree. And like I said, you know, it's sort of like the rape thing. It may have, on some levels, possession of me for the rest of my life. But that doesn't mean that the lady that raped me was any more wrong or more right than she thought she was. What she did, she did. I'm sure that in her head she justified it however she wanted. I know that in her head she made it right. Or maybe she didn't. Maybe she's tortured by it for the rest of her life. I don't know. Don't know who she is. May have OD'd a long time ago. But to sit here and blame her for it would be to not allow me to move past, to be the person, the sexual being, the sexual person that I am right now, which I love. I like the fact that I don't need it or desire it or have, you know, so to a great degree, I can praise what happened because that made me very distinctly a monogamous person, right? That I don't want any other complications. I don't have any desire for any other things. It also made me uniquely designed to be able to be absolutely monogamous because it created a distrust for many people. And I needed to create trust in that area in order to be able to even function there properly. Or improperly, and sometimes, yeah, that's it.
Oh boy.
Back to Sooke. Again, those things in my past, whether they be from my mom or my stepfather or any of the situations that occurred from all of that stuff, you know, whether my dad or all of those things are just situations. They're all facts from a past that I can no longer really remember accurately because I'm not going through it. That certainly affected my life. That, like I said, you know, I mean, if I sit here blaming my dad for not being a dad or, you know, all of that stuff, what am I doing with my life? You know, other than wasting my time. But lots of people waste their time like that.
Right.
Well, if only my dad had not beat me or, you know, and stuff like that. I mean, it's hard to get past being abused by your father or being abused by the people that abused you because there's a lot of abuse going on.
hotel.
It is. It's really nice, actually.
Well, right now it's a blurry hotel.
I mean, and nobody can fathom what that is for everybody. I know that because my former partner didn't understand what it was like to have to deal with a rape. Could not understand parts of it. That's just a fact. And was not open to be able to even bother. So, okay. That doesn't mean that somebody that hasn't been can be open to that.
Right.
It just means that,
You know, there's a little bit of more emotional stuff to deal with.
exactly.
You know, even if you don't understand it, it's not really about, I mean, you're not fixing anything.
Yeah.
It's just being there, listening, understanding that, you know, the triggers happen like that from, you know, sometimes the most insignificant things.
Yep.
And that
Can
you know,
trigger it and
yeah.
and it's done. I mean, you're finished. I mean, I know that when I get triggered, I can't stop. And you know, and I try. I can get through it kind of, but generally I gotta stop. And for me, I just gotta stop for a few minutes. You know, get my head together, feel okay. But I mean, each individual has, you know, whether they recognize it or not, lots of abuse in their background, whether it's verbal, whether it's physical, whether it's, you know, we all have our abuses to deal with. It is very, very difficult for people to deal with abuse when they have no clue of who they are. I mean, that's my point really behind this whole thing, is to understand that if you do not understand who you are, you can never understand who anybody else is. I mean, I got a friend that has hydrosyphilis, and nobody can really understand what he's going through that has not had the type of surgeries that he's had. Okay? Talia, on a level, can identify because of the amount of knee surgeries that she's had. He's had the time to get over it, and the time, all of that stuff. So she can at least identify emotionally with this person. But nobody really can identify with him other than another hydrosyphilis patient.
Right.
Right? That has been through all of the brain surgeries, that has had the shunt blocked, that has had all of the complications that go along with this.
Whereas we can only swap scary hospital stories.
Scary hospital stories, but at least there's something.
Yeah.
Right? No, I'm one of those rare people because I know who I am. I can say, you know what, I don't understand exactly what you're going through. But that doesn't mean that I don't take it on board.
Right.
You know, if there was a symptom or something like that that showed up, and he'd say, oh, that's part of my hydrosyphilis, and I say, okay, well, I'll just take that on board, make sure that when that does come up, I'm not taking it personally or anything like that.
Right.
It's just a symptom of where he's at. You know, it's sort of like the brain aneurysm guy, Andy.
Yeah.
I understand it, right? And even he said for him, when we were together out doing the camping thing, it's just, you know, it's really great that you're able to do that. So, but that's because I understand me well enough to know that we all got fucking problems.
Well, it's like even with, you know, my dad, you know,
His stroke.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't even, you know, my parents weren't even married when he had the stroke. But I mean, it's something that, you know, never goes away. It's not dealing with that. So,
Well, I mean, we all have to deal with who we have to deal with, right? I mean, it's sort of like you have to deal with my phobias.
Right.
When you make the commitment to me, you have to deal with my phobias. It's the same thing of saying, we're committed to having Nikita in our house. Well, we got to deal with all her stuff.
Right.
No matter what it is, even if it makes us uncomfortable, even if we, get upset by it, whatever. That's part of our commitment, right? But it's also part of our commitment to ourselves.
Right.
That we do that and walk through that. I mean, I remember when you had some trouble one night and were crying and there was a bunch of stuff that came up for you. Well, it didn't scare me because I know me. Right? I know that I have panic attacks. I know that I sometimes get in a space where I need some comfort I know all of those things about myself. And so when that stuff comes up, I'm not taking it as if you're attacking me. I'm not taking it as if I can't deal with it. The truth is I can deal with it because I have the quote unquote self-confidence.
Right.
And the self-confidence comes from knowing and accepting who I am. Delving into my understanding, delving into my thought patterns and saying, you know what? Other people probably have similar thought patterns and other people probably have similar problems. And because of this, there's probably more problems than I can possibly think of. Because I'm just one person in billions.
Right.
And I have not experienced everything everybody's experienced. So, having that as a clue, not being upset, not being judgmental about it, just recognizing the situation and seeing what it is that truly expresses me in that situation, which of course the expression that I want to do, the choices that I want to make are love-based. I want to be that. Okay? And especially in my relationship with you. And so therefore, when stuff like that comes up, I say, okay, one, can I deal with it? Of course I can. Because there's never a question that I can't. There's stuff I don't like dealing with. There's stuff,
Right.
I can go through all of the stuff that I would rather not go through. But whatever. It's come up. I got to deal with it. So I deal with it. And it's never always going to be the best. It's never always going to be in everybody else's favor. But I'll deal with it. And I will do my best always to deal with it from a place of love rather than a place of being afraid. Even if I'm afraid. Okay, I'm afraid. I mean, you've seen me where a traumatic situation has me shaking. But where I'm absolutely centered. Because I know how to center myself. And I know how to deal with most everything. Not always. Don't want to deal with most everything. But that's what we want to be teaching our kids. Not what to be afraid of. And that's basically what we're teaching them now. Is we're teaching them to be afraid. To be, I mean, there's lots of kids that stand up for themselves. But they're standing up for themselves like that because they're afraid. Because they learn that gets more stuff from the adults, right? Or it gets more stuff for them because people are afraid to deal with anger. So they get the anger out. But it's still afraid.